Alright, hey guys, we are going to talk about the last real two quadrilaterals, but there are actually three. So you should have got this copy of paper, this piece of paper from me in class today. If you didn't, make sure you print it out so you can fill it in. So preferably with some form of highlighter color, you're going to highlight the other quadrilaterals. The last four quadrilaterals we talked about were called special quadrilaterals because they are types of parallelograms, okay? So the parallelograms, they can all be classified as a parallelogram, where these last three can't. So let's first talk about a trapezoid, okay? A trapezoid has three major properties. First one, they have one pair of parallel sides, okay? Remember with parallelograms, opposite sides were parallel. In this case, only one pair of opposite sides are parallel, so that would be these ones. So that no longer means these are parallel, all right? It's just one pair. Second property about a trapezoid, you have no congruent sides. Just because these two lines are parallel does not make them congruent, okay? With a trapezoid, the last property, my leg angles are supplementary. Okay? So if I label parts of a trapezoid, all right, down here would be called a base. This is also called my other base. This is called a leg, and this is called a leg. So your parallel sides are the base, and the legs are the non-parallel sides. So what this last property tells me, leg angles are supplementary. That tells me this angle and that angle are supplementary. This angle up here and this angle down over there are also supplementary. Okay? So just keep that in mind. That does not mean they're all congruent. It just means these are supplementary and these are supplementary. Okay? So that's just a trapezoid. So now let's talk about an isosceles trapezoid. One other thing, really important thing about just a generic trapezoid, there are no diagonal relationships. They don't bisect each other, they're not congruent, they're not perpendicular, they're nothing. Okay? Last one, isosceles trapezoid. Okay? First piece, one pair, right in black here, one pair of parallel sides. Okay, so same as before. Second thing, my legs are congruent. So now that it's an isosceles trapezoid, that means my legs are going to be congruent. Okay? So now that my legs are congruent, I can say my base angles are also congruent. So that means this one and this one and this one and this one. One way a trapezoid is really going to mess you up, you're used to thinking about opposite angles being congruent, and that's not the case with a trapezoid. Now it's your base angle, so it's these two and it's those two. Okay? Number 4, leg angles are supplementary again. Okay? So same thing, this angle here and this angle here are supplementary, this angle here, this angle here are supplementary. Just like consecutive angles, okay? But these now aren't, actually you could also call them consecutive angles if you wanted to, okay? There is one last piece of information. Diagonals are congruent, okay? So if I erase all this stuff so I can show you what the diagonals look like, here, and here. Notice my diagonals don't bisect each other. This does not look like it's congruent to this. The only piece that's huge about diagonals is that they're congruent with an isosceles trapezoid, okay? Notice on a normal trapezoid, your diagonals are nothing. They're just diagonals. There's no specific characteristics about it, okay? So with parallelograms, we had other names for a square, a rectangle, or a rhombus. A trapezoid, you can call a trapezoid 3 things. I can call a trapezoid, oh, I'm sorry, an isosceles trapezoid, excuse me, let me repeat. You can call an isosceles trapezoid 3 things. You can call it an isosceles trapezoid, you can call it a trapezoid, if I can spell, You can also call it a quadrilateral. Okay? These 5 main characteristics you need to be able to know, as well as the different names of a trapezoid. So let's check out some of these practice problems. All right, it says find angle, all these angles. So let's fill out what I know. So I'm going to first find x. Okay, so it says 5x equals 10. So I know 5x equals 110 because these are vertical angles. So if I were to take 5x and divide it, you would get 55. Okay, so this is 110, this is 70, this is 70. Okay, we're going to assume they are isosceles trapezoids. Okay, so what other pieces of information can I find? See if you can think about it, and we will talk about it in class, next class. Same thing with the number 2. See if you can figure out number 2, and then based off the properties from above, and see if you can figure it out. We'll talk about it next class. All right? So go ahead and flip over your paper. Last one we got to talk about is a kite. And a kite is actually kind of a funny one, just because the properties don't match any of the other properties you've already learned. All right? So a kite has no parallel sides. None of these sides are parallel. So that's what makes it really different from all the other ones. Okay? Third one, adjacent sides are congruent. Adjacent means next to. Okay? So this is congruent to this one, and this is congruent to this one. Okay? Number 3, one pair of congruent angles. And that one pair of congruent angles is between the non-congruent sides. So that means this is congruent to this. Alright. There's actually 2 more pieces of information. If I draw my diagonals, okay, one really important thing, diagonals bisect one diagonal. So if you look at your diagonal, they bisect only one of the diagonals. So it's obviously this one right here. And if I fill up number 5 up here, my diagonals are also perpendicular, which means they meet at 90 degrees. So meeting at 90 degrees would be right there as well. Okay? So if we look at this first practice problem, okay, angle 1, angle 2, angle 3. Alright, so angle 1, okay, we immediately know is 90 degrees. Okay, so I know this is 90 degrees. So also angle 2, alright, you can easily find that out based off of the triangle there. And I don't have a calculator on hand, so I want you to be able to calculate that to figure out angle 2. Alright, and because these bisect each other, alright, you can also assume that your angles here are bisected on a kite. So you could also say angle 3 would also be 29 degrees. Okay? So go ahead and finish these 2, angle 2 and angle 3, and then I want you to go through and finish the rest of this piece of paper. One thing that is extremely crucial for next class is that you know the properties of all 7 quadrilaterals. A lot of them are very similar. However, there are some major differences between specific ones, specifically the diagonals. So make sure you are remembering, studying, memorizing, however you want to learn all of the properties for the quadrilaterals. Okay? I hope everybody has a great weekend, great day when you're watching this, depending, and I will see you next class.